शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यश्छन्दसो मृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणगुं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य म आनीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधितेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं नो अपि वातय मनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim Cha Tatputra Parasharam Cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padmapadam Cha Hastamalakam Cha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaramanyānas Madgurun Santato Manatosmi Om Vishwam Dirpanadishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyannat Manimayaya Bahirivodbhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaitam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitrya Chitri Kritam Maya Viva Vijrambhayatyapi Mahayogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaitam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyaiva Sphuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Sakshat Tattvamasiti Vedavachasa Yo Bodhayatyashritan Yat Sakshat Karanad Bhavena Punaravrittirbhavambo Nidhau Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaitam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Nana Chidraghatoddarasthita Mahadipa Prabhavaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradikarana Dvara Bahirspandate Janamiti Chane Tameva Bhantamanubhatye Tatsamastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaitam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Deham Pranamapindriyanapi Chalam Buddhim Cha Shunyam Viduhu Stri Balanda Jadopamastvahamiti Bhranta Bhrisham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Maha Vyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So today we will begin a short revision of the 4 sutras that we have already done. And I found in the last few years the value of revision. It's been always something that we knew the revision should be good to do, but to the extent that it's been useful for me personally, I had not really seen that before. Recently I'm trying to do one talk by Swami Maheshananji on Rudram every day in the morning. So about 10-12 pages I read. And so he takes up a topic and really explains this from Rudram. And what I find is that after I finish a day's lesson, the next day I want to begin a new one. But before that, I've gotten into habit of revising the previous day's lesson. And more often than not, what I find myself is I just spend the whole day revising, but really getting a gist and a depth of that feeling which I didn't get the day before. It's something amazing. So the revision in my mind has been a very great tool to really clarify and consolidate these subtle ideas. And so anyway, so with that preamble, I'm going to revise the 4 sutras for the benefit of highlighting some of the main concepts that I think should be kept in our minds as we go forward. So first of all, just the authorship and the structure of the Brahmasutras. As you know, Vyasacharya, who's really just an avatara of Ishvara, avatara of Vishnu, to have this kind of wisdom in a lifespan of a human being, it is really impossible to understand. I mean, you and I have gone through that. It takes us a while for us to really understand the language, the concepts behind life, focus ourselves on it. And how long do we have to really express these deep ideas in our lifetime? Very difficult to do. So it's not an ordinary human being. Vyasa is, this Ishvara takes, each one of us is an avatara of Ishvara really. Is an expression of the inner strength and the inner beauty of Ishvara. And so, in a way, all of us are avatars, but then this special power of thinking and analyzing and so on is given to some Mahapurusham. And Vyasacharya is one of those. And amazing. We have not really seen anything in our entire in our history to have somebody like that. There are people that come close. Adi Shankara is there. Panini, the grammarian, is just totally brilliant. Anyway, there are many people, but Vyasa takes the stage. So what he has done is, of course, as you know, Vyasa is the one that codified the 4 Vedas. So he is not an author of the Vedas, but he has extracted, codified, defended, and structured the study of the Vedas in the 4 Vedas that we know of. And so he himself has done that. Then he thought that he would also have an analytical approach to the main concepts contained in all of the Vedas that establishes the fundamental truth about Brahman, the Atma, as the main objective that we should have in our lives. That's the tatparya of the life. You know, we often think about it. What is the purpose of life? And it is just amazing how the main purpose of life is lost on most of us. And it really takes a lot of study and so on to really understand that the main purpose is to realize the inherent freedom that we already have, and we just don't understand it. That I am an unlimited being. In fact, this is the search for Ishvara, because the unlimited nature of Ishvara is my nature. This I need to understand. This is the main purpose of it. So in order to go over this, the Brahma Sutra takes a very scholastic, very structured, very analytically sound method of underpinning the conceptual ideas that, because our mind is that we should have, because our mind is raises all kinds of questions. Even when the mind itself does not have the ability to think, it thinks it has the ability to think. And so it questions, how can this be? How can I be unlimited? How can I be free? If I'm already free, then how come I don't feel free? All those kinds of questions that come up. And so it's good that those questions are raised very consciously by Vyasacharya and then answers them. So this is the structure of the Brahmasutras. So one thing that we should keep in mind is that the Brahmasutra is really an explanation of the Upanishads themselves. It is not a new source of knowledge that the Upanishads don't have. It is simply rearranging the ideas in a way that the vision of the Upanishads becomes clearer in our mind. So it is really called, in fact, that is what it is called. It is called Upanishad Sutras, Vedanta Sutras. It is not an independent work which presents a new knowledge that the Upanishads doesn't have. No, it is the same knowledge as the Upanishads. Number one. It can also be called sometimes Sharirika Sutram. So Sharirika means the one that obtains in the Sharira is called Sharirika. Sharire bhavam iti Sharirikam. So Sharire means that each one of us has a Sharira. So Sharira means a body. As you know, in Sanskritam, all the words have a meaning. There's no words in some, very, very few, rare words in Sanskritam that do not have a Vyutpatti Artha, which does not have an etymologically pure meaning. There is a meaning for it. Once in a while, there is what is called Rudhi Artha. So the Rudhi Artha means it is just by convention. Most of the other languages have generally Rudhi Artha. So when there is water and there is husband, wife, table, etc., there's no meaning for it. But in the case of Sanskritam, that is not the case. The language itself lends itself to having a basic dhatu from which the meaning evolves. So the word Sharirika means Sharire Bhavam. So the word Sharira also, you should see, Shiryamanyatvat Sharira. So this is an interesting thing to see, that the body means one which is meant to decay. Shiryamanatvat Sharira. So here Sharirika Sutra means the one which obtains in this Sharira. What obtains in the Sharira? Atma. Brahman, same thing. One that does not change. One which remains the same. This is the thing. It's in Vedanta, what it does not, the Vedanta does not give you a new experience. This is an important thing to see. Sometimes we are basically experience seekers. All of our life we want new experiences. And so we feel that we haven't had those experiences. So we need a new experience. And so whenever we go travel, it is in the search of a new experience. I did not have that before, now I have it, and I'm very happy about it. And so we are experience seekers. So the Vedanta, this should be understood, is not the purveyor of new experiences. What it does do is to take another look at your current experience so that you have a correct idea about it rather than the wrong idea about it. This is what Vedanta does. So as an example, we were talking about Sharirika and Sharire Bhavam, etc. For example, just look at this. It is our experience that a life of a human being, life of any being, but let's say human being, the life of a human being has both a changing component and an unchanging component. This is the truth and this is the way it should be. How? Because the very simple statement, when you say, when I was young, that's it. Just look at this statement. When I was young, then you can fill in the blanks. When I was young, this statement has two components in it. One is, I am, and the second component is, I was endowed with some qualities which are no longer there now. Youth, when I was young. So that part is the changing component. The unchanging component is the fact that you recognize and you agree to and you are espousing the fact that you are the same person that was young and is no longer young now. Because without the unchanging component, you could not make the statement, isn't it? If it's a new person, we could not have a life. Every time there is a new person. And then you ask somebody, what did you do when you were young? That question will be unintelligible. When I was young, I am what I am now. What young? What do you mean? That's not me. Life would become meaningless. So therefore, what I said is that Vedanta, all it does is that we have an experience each one of us has an experience that we have a very funny stuff going on, that there is on the unchanging bedrock of me, there are changes going on, and I know it. When I was young, when I was in India, now I'm here, etc., etc. We make those statements effortlessly. But then what happens is that I mix up both the changing and the unchanging. I do not have the strength to keep them separate. They get knotted together. And so what happens is that when I say when I was young means that my status is that of whatever qualities I have. So if I'm young, then I am young. And now I'm old. That means I'm different now. Not recognizing that statement is not valid, because you cannot be different experiences without something which has no experience whatsoever, which is yourself. So Vedanta, to close that topic, does not give you a new experience. But what it does is to say, listen, this is what the Adhyasa Bhashya is all about, which we will revise very, very, very quickly now. And it says that, listen, you're just making an error because you're getting the unchanging and the changing mixed up. This is what Viveka means. And so, take another look at it, that if you are unchanged, then you are unchanged. There's no question of saying changing. Yes, you're capable of supporting your change. That's a different matter altogether. But you're changeless. You yourself say that. The statement, I was young, you're talking truth. But the thing is that you're mixing up yourself with the youth. So please take a look at it and really understand that, get some clarity about your thinking. And so this kind of a mistake really plays havoc with our life. This is where we are born and die and born and die, and we don't really stop the process of recognizing the unchanging nature of ourselves. This is what Vedanta does. And so, anyway, this is just from Sharirika Sutram. This is Sharirika Sutram. This is the sutra for one which obtains in the Sharira, but not the Sharira itself. Atma. Atma Sutra. It could be called Atma Sutra. Anyway, so that's one way to look at it. Now, going back to the component of the Brahma Sutra, as we know very quickly, that Vyasacharya has composed a different aphorism. Aphorism means a very concise concept. 555 of them. There are 555 sutras, and it's divided into 4 chapters, 4 adhyayas. And each adhyaya has 4 padas, 4 sections. And each section, each pada, has different adhikaranas or topics. And altogether, they're considered to be 191 or 192, as Swami Paramarthananda pointed out. I'm not sure where the differences are, where there is some ambiguity, but 192 different topics are given. So it is divided into 4 adhyayas, and the first adhyaya is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. And all the 4 sutras are contained, that we have already studied, are contained in this adhyaya, Samanvaya Adhyaya. And the purpose of this adhyaya, because each chapter, adhyaya means a chapter, each chapter has a theme to it, a reason for it. And the theme for the Samanvaya Adhyaya is to establish that Brahman is the main topic of all Upanishads. And as you know, then we already know this, but when you make a statement like this, you have to prove it. You have to prove it. So it has both a, what I would call a proactive proof and a reactive proof. Sort of like an offense in football and a defense in football. And so the proactive rule is to prove that all of the Upanishads have one tatparya, which is to reveal Brahman. This is what the tatparya is. Brahma Sutra. This is the Brahman Sutra. This is the tatparya. The defensive arguments are, you look at objections to this and sustain it. You say, no, Brahman is not the main topic. How can it be main topic? This is not the main, there are other different topics. And then you say, you are wrong. It is in fact the main topic. So this is the main purpose of the first adhyaya, which is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. Samanvaya itself consists of the prefix sam and anvaya. So anvaya means an understanding, a sort of like a resolution. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Resolve. It's the resolution is called Anvaya. Samanvaya means totally correct, non-arguable resolution. It's called Samanvaya. So, so the word Anvaya, it's interesting. Sometimes you have sentences, in fact in Vedanta this is what happens all the time. There are poetic sentences. So most of the mantras, because they are meant to be recited, so therefore they have a poetic way of rearranging words so that they all sound very well and they stick in your memory. This is what the mantras are. But then sometimes the way we think, we cannot really rearrange the words. The way we think is that the subject comes first and the object comes later and the verb comes in the middle, all of those things. But here the Anvaya is not being done, and so they all appear to be mixed up. But to resolve the poetic nature of the mantras into vernacularly understandable sentences is called Anvaya. And so Samanvaya means Samyak Anvaya. Very well done. Foolproof. So this is called Samanvaya. And the second adhyaya is called Avirodha Adhyaya. Avirodha means one which is not, which has no ambiguity to it. Very clear. It has no. So it's in a way it's an explanation of the Samanvaya, but goes into much more detail. And so the Avirodha Adhyaya, which happens to be the biggest one, looks at the consistency and the Anvaya in new manners, and actually has in 4 different segments. First segment is Virodha, between internal Virodha. Virodha means opposition, means inconsistency. You are saying one thing here and something else somewhere else. This is called Virodha. Or you can just say something opposite to each other. So the first one is internal inconsistency. Internal consistency. There's no inconsistency internal. Then the second one is Shruti Smriti. What is said in the Smritis, Bhagavad Gita, and what is said in the Shruti there's no opposition to it. Oftentimes it's very interesting. I get requests from people that, are you taking any classes in Bhagavad Gita? In fact, just this morning I got an inquiry from someone. I haven't replied to this gentleman yet. I'm going to. But just this morning when I woke up and I looked at my emails, there was an email saying, I understand you teach Bhagavad Gita. I'd like to learn Bhagavad Gita. So I know this from experience that many times I would respond and say, right now I'm not teaching Bhagavad Gita, I'm teaching Vedanta. And if I leave it at that, the person will say, no. I don't want to learn Vedanta, I want to learn Bhagavad Gita. And then so that's a wrong impression. Bhagavad Gita is Vedanta. So this is what is called Shruti, Smriti. I think I only have 3, not 4 Avirodhas. The third one is Shruti and Yukti. So this is a very big thing. And so we will go and revise when we revise this, hopefully even today, and if not, then some of the future days. Yukti means reason, pure reason, pure reason. This is the way it should be, otherwise it will be like this. This is the way it should be. So this is all logic. And so Shruti says something which appears to be illogical. And this is where, for example, the differences between the scientific view, so-called scientific view of life and spiritual view of life. So you can see that there are differences. People will, somebody can ask you, what are you studying? So you tell them, I'm studying Vedanta. What's Vedanta mean? So you tell them Vedanta means that there is only one person in the whole creation, which is Ishvara, and I'm not different from it. In fact, I'm also, you can say, I have this fundamental aspects of Ishvara. The scientist will laugh at you. And he says, okay, do whatever you want. Has nothing to do with science. We observe things, we categorize them, we draw conclusions from it, we replicate it, only then it becomes science. This is all gobbledygook that you're telling me about you and Ishvara is the same, this, that or the other. What does that mean? So we have to resolve that. We have to satisfy that person. We cannot be able to satisfy it, but we at least be able to respond to that person. And say, no, in fact, Shruti is more scientific than science. Anyway, to resolve the virodha between Shruti and Yukti is also a part of this chapter, which is called Avirodha. So, here we go into, in fact, one difference between the Samanvaya Adhyaya and the Avirodha Adhyaya, the first and the second. I think I saw that someplace. That's a good way to look at it. In the Samanvaya Adhyaya, well, before that, just to tell you that very soon, we will do that today itself, there are 12 recognized what is called darshana. So darshana means a viewpoint. Schools of thought are called darshanas. So there are 12 recognized darshanas. 6 of them accept Vedas as a pramana, and 6 others do not accept Vedas as a pramana. Right? So in the Samanvaya Adhyaya, the people who are taken up for discussion are those that do accept Vedas as a pramana. And in the Avirodha Adhyaya, the discussion is taken up with people who do not recognize Vedas as a pramana. So that's the one distinction also between Samanvaya Adhyaya and Avirodha Adhyaya. So anyway, now these two Adhyayas, by the time this is done, the establishment that Brahman is the main topic and Brahman should be the understanding of Brahman should be your main tatparya in life, that should be main goal in life, is done. Okay? So in some way you can say the Shravanam is complete by the study of the first 2 chapters, first 2 Adhyayas. But now you accept it, but you don't have a direct view of this to the saying, yes, this is me, I understand it. Right now you're saying, our Guruji, our Vyasacharya ji is the one who's saying it. But right now, I don't have the viewpoint that I'm saying it because I don't see it that way. So to do this, now the second part of sutras consisting of the third and the fourth chapter is now given. So in that way it is really Mananam and Nididhyasanam. So the third chapter is Mananam Param. So why? Because now the name of the third Adhyaya is Sadhana Adhyaya. So all types of disciplines of preparation for the mind necessary for us to really grasp this directly is given. This is called Sadhana Adhyaya. Then the fourth Adhyaya, which is the smallest, is called Phala Adhyaya. So Phala Adhyaya means the result. How you should, what will you feel? What will you see? So it's like, telling someone to go on a pilgrimage. And then you can say that in order to go to Badrinath or to Kedarnath or to Gangotri or Yamunotri, all these hard to reach places, this is where you need to go. If you're coming from abroad, then the best thing is to go to New Delhi. This is one sadhana. Then from New Delhi you can go to Haridwar. You can go by bus, train, you can fly, and from there you have to get into a vehicle because you have to go by road. There's another sadhana. And when you go there, you will see Himalayas starting. You will see trees like this. You will see this. You will see this. Then you see, when you go to the pilgrimage, you will have the direct darshana of some deity. And this is what this is exactly what Google does. So you go to Google Maps and you say, I need to go to such and such place. And so now Google Maps, as you know, does a very good thing. Not only does it give you the sadhana of going there, what route to follow, it gives you the final picture of what the place looks like. Very beautiful. So this Phala Adhyaya does that what will be your picture in life, where if you accomplish all this, what will you see about yourself? How will you see Ishvara? How will the world look to you? And so this will be given in two different ways. So this is what is called moksha. But moksha in two forms. One is sadhyo mukti, sadhyo moksha, jivan mukti. And the other one is krama mukti. Krama mukti means that you'll get close to it, but you may have to spend another life or two in order to make it. So both of them are discussed in the Phala Adhyaya, which is the fourth Adhyaya. So this is the structure of Brahma Sutra. Okay, let's go on. So, as I had mentioned that in order to establish and to defend the vision of the Shastra that Brahman is the main Tatparya of the Vedas, we have to look at possible objections from other people. And who are these other people when we say other people? So, as I mentioned, there are 12 darshanas, 12 schools of thought. And 6 of them do not accept Vedas as a pramana. So these are called Nastika. So one clarification of the word astika and nastika, especially those of us that are from India. I also grew up thinking that nastika means who do not believe in God, and astika means who believe in God. So atheist versus theist. This was our feeling. Not so. Nastika is not about God, but about Vedas as a pramana. This is what the word astika and nastika should mean. So there are 6 nastikas that are distinct from each other and have a following, and so we need to examine them. What are those? One is Charvakaha. Charvakaha is the majority of the people who feel we don't know whether there's going to be a life after death or not. Just enjoy your life. Just live day to day. Have fun. And whatever happens, happens. There is no reason to think about next life and this, that, or the other. So, Charvakaha means Charu Vak Yasya, the ones whose speech is very pleasant. You'll say, just have a drink, enjoy. You don't have to worry about things and so on and so forth. It's a short life. Just have a good day and just don't. This is called Charvakaha. The second one is Jains. Jainis. Jain. We know the Jain temple and the Buddhist temple. The Jains are the ones who says we do not believe in the Vedas. We have our own authority, the way of leading a life, and so there are good people. It's nothing to do with bad or goodness or anything. They just do not see the same way as the Vedantins do. And so, for example, they say there are many Atmas. Each person has its own Atma, which is different from other Atmas. So just like one view of that. Jains. Then there are 4 types of Buddhists. So with these Charvakaha, Jains, and the 4 types of Buddhists, we have 6 Nastikas. And so the Buddhists also differ with each other, but they have different ways of looking at things. And we study it to a certain extent, but not in detail in our one. They're called Sautratika, Vaibhashika, Yogacharaha, and Madhyamika. And if you go around the Buddhist philosophy around the world, they're all one or the other. In Tibet, it's one thing. In Sri Lanka, is something else. In Japan is something else. So there are some common ones also, but there are different strands of Buddhism. So these are the 4 of Buddhism, 1 of Jain, and the Charvakaha is called the Nastika. What are the Astika? Let's look at Astika. And those are the ones that the first 4 sutras address, and the entire Samanvaya Adhyaya addresses. Those are, number 1, Sankhya. And the authorship is given, not the authorship, but in way of somebody who is the main proponent of that, are given in here. So Sankhya is Kapila Muni. Kapila Muni is the proponent. In fact, he has written his own Sankhya Sutras. So Sankhya. And the second one is Yoga, Patanjali. We are more familiar with that. The Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So the second one is Yogas. The third one is Nyaya. And the proponent of that is Gautama. Nyaya, Nayayika are the people who followed Nyaya. Nyaya means pure logic. And so you can say that the modern scientists are the modern form of Nyaya. They fall under Nyaya, scientists. Then Vaisheshika and Kanada is the proponent, Vaisheshika. So Nyaya and Vaisheshikas are similar to each other, but they have some differences. And so the science can be a combination of Nyaya and Vaisheshika. So that's the fourth one. Then the fifth one is Purva Mimamsa by Jaimini. Jaimini is the proponent of that. And one can even say they are not the authors, but that's how they interpret the Vedas. Because they do have some reverence to the Vedas because they are Astikas, but the way they explain things has their own way of thinking. The interpretation is very personal. So that's Purva Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa means that is the prevalent form of Vedic worship and yajnas today, which has to do a lot with karma, with kriya. All Purva Mimamsa, Jaimini. Then the sixth one and the last one is Uttara Mimamsa. So Purva Mimamsa means the earlier part of the Vedas, the Vedic injunctions, and the Uttara means the latter part, Vedanta in fact. And here, as you know, the main proponent is Vyasacharya. So these are the six Astikas. So one interesting thing, out of these six Astikas, three of them do not accept God. So it's very funny. They accept Vedas, but they don't accept Ishvara as a person. Who are they? One is Sankhya. The second one is Vaisheshika. And the third one, which is an absolute surprise, is Purva Mimamsa. So in Purva Mimamsa also, there is no recognition of God as such. In the household that I grew up, we have in Amritsar, so we had my maternal grandfather was an Arya Samaji. So Arya Samaji is a proponent of Purva Mimamsa. I didn't really understand any of the discussions. We used to have swamis that would come to our house. I don't know what kind of swamis they were. I was too young. I would just come and do namaste and then get out of the room, and there would be discussions. My grandfather actually taught some classes in the local Arya Samaj Mandir. So really I didn't understand what was going on. But just gauging from the memory, we never really had any murtis in our home. There was no prayer to a devata or Ishvara. But what we had was a lot of yajnas, a lot of homas, a lot of recitation of Vedas. And I'm very fortunate that the whole family was very ethical, pure vegetarians. I grew up with absolutely not even an egg in the house, and very pious people, my grandma and my grandfather and so on, very straightforward, very simple folk, wonderful people, had a very good beginning. But this is the interesting thing. Now I'm beginning to sort of put two and two together. They do not believe in Ishvara. They believe in the Vedas. So Vedas for them was the authority and the mantras and the yajnas and so on. So this is a Purvamimamsa. Surprising. So Sankhyas, Vaisheshikas and Purvamimamsas do not believe in Ishvara, whereas Yoga, Nyaya and Uttaramimamsa also believe and recognize and follow Ishvara. So one other commentary on the Astikas. The first four, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya and Vaisheshika, they do accept Veda as a pramana, but as a corroborative to Tarka. Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya and Vaisheshikas, they think that both Tarka and Vedas, in fact they give Tarka as the main stage and the Vedas as a secondary corroborative stage. They do recognize the value of Vedas, but not as the main one. The last two, Purvamimamsa and Uttaramimamsa, give main pradhana to Vedas, not to Tarkas. So what the Vedas say, this is what the Shruti Vakya is, Shruti, Yukti and Anubhava. Shruti is the main one. But the interesting thing is, the Purvamimamsa, they do not recognize Ishvara. So here we have, this is the patchwork of various thoughts and concepts that that Vedanta has to deal with in that sense. Okay, so those are the darshanas, the 12 different schools of thought that are kept in mind in the discussion of the Brahma Sutra. All right, so let's go on. So here in the discussion of Brahma Sutra, the next thing that we studied in our class, and our classes were heavily influenced by the conceptual framework that was presented by Swami Paramarthananda. And the reason he did it this way is that, and this is how I actually also decided to teach Brahma Sutra, is not to literally go into Shankara Bhashya every sentence, but to understand the conceptual framework and then to go into the Shankara Bhashya when it is easily understandable. Because in order to study Brahma Sutras, you need to really know Sanskritam very well. Otherwise it will not be, it won't really have the same. And so the conceptual framework was meant for people that didn't know Sanskritam. So in order to do so, certain fundamental concepts were presented by Swami Paramarthananda, and I adopted them also because I think it is good to see the underpinnings of the concepts. So one of them is the type of logical analysis that is necessary in our mind, which is fundamentally sound. So this is what is called Nyaya Prasthanam. Nyaya Prasthanam. Prasthanam means the main highway. When you have to go a long distance, you have to go into not side streets, but the main one which directly takes you there. And so that should be based on Nyaya, should be based on logic. So an understanding of the fundamentals of logic is an important aspect of understanding Brahma Sutra. So this is what is called the Anumana. Anumana means inference. How do you draw certain concepts if you do not directly see something? So you see, this is the thing. In Vedanta, as we will see in much more, this is a very beautiful section that we will go over hopefully today itself, if not then next week, that because Atma is not an object that you can verify, therefore, but at the same time it is there. Same time it is there. Atma is, you and I, we have a very peculiar relationship. We are the only entity, vastu. You cannot call it a thing, because a thing is jada. So the proper use is vastu or entity, if you want to do something in English. We are the only entity which is part and parcel of our life, and yet apart from it. This needs to be thought about. Only entity. See, because the meaning of that is that you cannot have an experience if you're not part and parcel of the genesis of that experience, isn't it? All the parts has to be there. Supposing you say, I went to, we had a wonderful experience in San Francisco in their Natural History Museum, or something like that. I don't even know whether we have a Natural History Museum. But supposing you say, I went to visit the Natural History Museum in San Francisco, I had a wonderful experience. So in that statement, what it means is that the place where the Natural History Museum is there was visited. I visited it, and we talked to a number of teachers there. There were exhibits. They were having some exhibition and this, that, or the other. I bought some books from their library. All those kinds of things you can say. So in there, all the things are objectified by you as part of the experience. And yet you were there, but you were not objectifying it. Therefore, you are an entity which is involved in the world, and yet you are not involved. Very, very interesting, very strange thing, really. And so Vedanta says that a way of postulation, of inferring the presence of the I, even though you cannot directly see, is important. And so therefore the logic which underpins this kind of thinking is necessary. So with that we can say that we have to understand Anumana. And Anumana has 4 different sections that we must understand. One is called Paksha, the second one is called Sadhya, the third one is called Haitu, and the last one is called Drishtanta. Paksha, Sadhya, Haitu and Drishtanta. So Paksha means, let's start with the first one. Paksha means the vastu that we are talking about. The end point of what we are talking about. When I give an example about the fire on the mountain, as we have done before, this will become clearer. But Paksha means the place where the thing is under consideration. Sadhya means one that has to be proven, which is not yet proven, which is yet to be proved. The third one is Haitu. Haitu means the logic. And the fourth one is Drishtanta. Drishtanta means there must be at least one example of that being true. So with that in view, let us look at, you see as you're traveling on the road, that happens to all of us, from a distance in the forest area, mountain area, you see a black smoke. You see a black smoke emanating from an area that is visible to you. This is the example. This is the Drishtanta. Now here's the situation. You do not see the fire directly. You only see black smoke. You don't see the fire. See, for example, supposing you are traveling and there is a car on the side of the road which is on fire, and traffic is slow and so on, and CHP is saying, come on, go ahead, don't be a rubbernecker. Everything is under control, just go. But you want to see the burning car. That burning car is a direct, you don't have any inference. You don't need any inference. It is a direct experience that there is a car which is on fire, which is a sight really to see how the whole thing, the seats and everything, tires, all they just get engulfed in fire. Now I'm sure we've all seen it. But suppose you see black smoke, but not the fire. Then if you are an adult, you will make the statement, the mountain is on fire. How are you justified in making that statement? So you're justified in making the statement because, so let's look at it. First of all, there is Paksha. Paksha means the place, the main entity which you are describing. So the main entity here is not the fire, it is not the smoke, it is the mountain. Because you say the mountain is on fire. Something is happening to the mountain. That means mountain meaning trees, foliage. Something is happening there. And what is happening there? That seems to be fire is happening there. How can you say that? Because, so now let's look at all four of the factors in this example. One is that the mountain is on fire. Even though I don't see the fire, but I say the mountain is on fire. The second one is, it answers the question, is it on fire or not? It is called sadhya. Sadhya is a doubt. What is to be established is called sadhya. It is not yet established, but it is to be established. How can you say it is to be established? But supposing you're going in a car and you have some kids in the car They're also seeing the same phenomena as you're saying. But they're not saying that the mountain is on fire because they don't see the fire. But you are saying that the mountain is on fire because that has to be established in their minds. It's called sadhya. Then comes the third factor, which is called Haitu. So Haitu means the logic behind it. How can you say that the mountain is on fire? The logic is whenever there is a black smoke, there must be fire. This is the logic. This is the Haitu. You cannot have black smoke without fire. You can have white smoke without it. This happens all the time. You go there and you see there's a lot of white smoke. Then you say, oh, there's an interesting factory here. And they have a lot of steam that comes out through some phenomena. And so, so you can say that's a white smoke. But here it is black smoke. And so black smoke and fire are established fact. This is called Haitu. And the Dishtanta, of course, is you have to... so the Dishtanta would be that wherever there is a black smoke, there has to be fire. There can be a fire without black smoke, like in modern kitchens. So there you have fire, but there is no black smoke. But if there is black smoke, there must be fire. This is called Drishtanta. This is the example. So these are the four different elements of Anumanam. All right. So now we won't be able to complete it, but I want to go one segment more. I have 3 more minutes to go. So one more segment. Should I do it? Yeah, let me just mention it and I will. This is an important thing, so we need to revise it. Revise the revision. So Paksha is an important thing. Paksha means what are we talking about? Here we're talking about a mountain which is visible. A mountain which is visible. This is what we're talking about. So now the conclusion that you have to make about something must be about that place, not something else. You cannot have, so the Paksha means that it must be the same subject matter. You cannot change the subject matter as it happens all the time. So if you draw some conclusions about the moon, for example, the same conclusions cannot be drawn about Mars or Neptune because the Paksha is different. The reason this becomes important is because the scientific inquiry of Nyaya and Vaisheshika and so on all have to do with Anatma. Not about the Atma. Because the science is based on pratyaksha. They have to see it in front of you. Atma cannot be seen as an object. But if you were to say that the Atma does not exist, you are changing the Paksha. Because you don't, Atma is not an object. You must keep through the same paksha. So all the scientific inquiries are irrelevant for understanding Atma. This is the point that we need to be clear. So this is why the understanding of the four elements of Anumanam, and we will also do Arthapatti next time, is important. The conceptual framework is important, otherwise you can come up with wrong conclusions and you blame it and saying this is not scientific, this is not scientific. Anyway, we will proceed with this. I hope this kind of a revision is useful to you because in a way we have already studied it, but we didn't into such detail that perhaps the body of the conclusion gets scattered. And so bring it all together may be of useful. So I think we will continue with this. So let me finish the prayers and to see if you have any observations or questions. Om Rahu Grasta Divankarendu Sadrisho Maya Samachadana Sanmatra Karanopasamharanato Yo Bhut Shushuptaf Puman Pragaswapsvamiti Prabodha Samaye Yapatya Vigyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Balyadishu api jagradadishu tatha sarvasvavasthasvapi vyavrittasvanuvartamanamahamittyantaspurantam sada swatmanam prakatikaroti bhajatam yo mudraya bhadraya tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Vishvam Pashyati Karya Karanataya Swaswami Sambandataha Shishyacharyataya Tathaiva Pitru Putradhyatmana Bhedataha Swapne Jagrati Vaya Esha Purusho Maya Paribhramitaha Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Purambhamsya Nalo Nilo Ambaramaharnartho Himamshu Puman Ityabhati Charatcharatmakamidam Yasyaiva Murtyashtakam Nanyat Kinchana Vidyate Vimrishatam Yasmat Parasmat Vibhoho Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Sarvatmatvamiti Sputi Kritamidam Yasmadamushmin Stave Tenasya Shravanad Tattamananad Dhyanat Cha Sankirtanad Sarvatmatvamaha Vibhuti Sahitam Syadishwaratvam Swataha Siddhyetat Punarashtadha Parinatam Jaishwaryam Avyahatam Ashubhani Nirachashthe Tanoti Satasant Tanoti Shubhasantatim Smriti Matrena Yat Pumsam Brahmatan Mangalam Param Ati Kalyana Rupatvat Nitya Kalyana Samshayat Smartranam Varadatvacha Mangalam Tad Vidu Tan Mangalam Viduhu Omkaraschatha Shabdascha Dvavetau Brahmanah Pura Kantham Bhitva Viniryatau Tasman Mangilikau Vabhau Om Atha Om Atha Om Atha Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Very nice to see you all. Surendra and Zarina, thank you for your feeling that it's useful to you review Brahma Sutra, and I think that this would be borne out. You will see that all four sutras will consolidate our conceptual view of what it is, and so good. Virendra, you're saying the memory and other faculties of the mind/brain are destroyed in diseases of brain like Alzheimer's, dementia, etc. Identity of who one is lost. So basis of identity is the brain. Yes, it's true. What you say is true. I'm not sure what you're driving to. I think what you say is true, but what does it mean in terms of the Vedanta that we are studying? I'm not sure that you're questioning anything or agreeing with it. That's the part that I would like to see you do. You can send me an email regarding it. But just to comment on what you're just saying, that so we have due to our self-ignorance, we have the mistaken notion that anything which is superimposed upon us is me. So what is superimposed on us, on me, is all the three shariras, the Karana Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira, and the Sthula Sharira, and all the Panchakoshas, Annamaya Kosha, etc. Everything is superimposed upon us. So having accepted that, then the shape of what is superimposed upon us keeps changing. And so, for example, you feel that I am someone who is smart or intelligent. And if the intelligence goes, then you say, I am no longer intelligent, but I am somebody who is no longer intelligent. I don't know who I am, even in the Alzheimer's. But you are still under the spell of saying that there is something, I am something that I can recognize or not recognize very well. So there are shades of recognition. So, but it all forms under a false sense of adhyasa, that this is who I am. So Vedanta says that this will go on until you understand that this is just a superimposition on yourself. You cannot change, you cannot be, what you are seeing as a pratyaksha is your shadow, your reflection, not you yourself. You are not going to change. And so it doesn't matter whether the brain is, because all that will happen is that you have not determined who you are, and you'd have to take another birth with a fresh set of brains. And so this is just a deterioration of the superimposition. That's how I interpret your. Good, Lakshmi. I'm happy that you also feel that way, that it is useful to you. So I think as I proceed further, I'm going to really highlight on things that are the essence of the four Vedas, four sutras, and so you can really extract from it the main concept. So let's see how that goes. All right, with that, I take your leave, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Thank you.